Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ شُهَدَاءَ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَظِيمُ. اللهم صل على سيدنا شفينا حبيبنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا شفينا حبيبنا مولانا محمد بارك وسلم صلاة وسلاما عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله تعالى عليه وآله وسلم. Jazakallahu khairan for organizing this book session. Brother Muhsin and all of your friends, you did the effort to organize this program. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. The book session we are going to have, this is a book compiled by a scholar of the time in 3rd, 4th century of Hijrah, that is Sheikh and Imam Ibn Hazm. He is well known by his title Ath-Dhahiree. So Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree. And his famous book is al-Muhallā bil-Athār. Al-Muhallā bil-Athār. This is the book that we are going to read or understand, inshallah. But before I start reading the book, I just wanted to give you the brief of the life of Imam Ibn Hazm. So it will be easier for us to understand what he is going to mention and how and what could be the reason. So something is helpful as a context to understand his methodology. So Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree, he born in 384 Hijrah and he passed away in 456 Hijrah, or you can say 994, 10th century, and he passed away 1064. So Hijri wise 384 and the Gregorian calendar is 994 and he passed away in 1064. This is the time, in general we use that 4th and 5th century of Hijrah. This is the time when you can see the Islamic world are, mashallah, full of the scholarship, ulamas, scholars. They are learning, reading, teaching, bringing the people in the halaqas in the eastern part of the world and the western part of the world. The western part of the world, I mean, is Spain, Undulus or Andalusia. Imam Ibn Hazm belongs to this part of the world, the western part, and that is Spain. Spain that was ruled by Banu Umayyah or the Umayyad, and mashallah, as we all know, this is the history part of our Islamic history, that we lost Spain after ruling 1900 years, and we lost this precious history. Many scholars, this area produced many scholars and the ulama and the fuqaha and many branches of knowledge. They were experts in many branches of knowledge. For me, some names, few names from this region, and one of them is Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree. And then you can also say in Tasawwuf, Sheikh Ibn al-Arabi is from Maliki fiqh. He is from this region. And then Ibn Rushd al-Maliki. And then Imam al-Qurtubi. These are the scholars, and they are the scholars of the time. Imam Ibn Hazm, and in Tasawwuf, Ibn al-Arabi, Sheikh Ibn al-Arabi, and Ibn Rushd in fiqh, Maliki. If we focus only on these three, and there are many, Imam Qurtubi and others, they all are Imam of the time. They all are Imam of the time. Imam of the time, I don't mean that like 5 daily prayers Imam like us. They are the scholars of the time, and they all have their own approaches or different understanding of Sharia and in different understanding of Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alaihi wasallam. So Ibn Hazm established a separate madhab as known as Dhahiri. So he became Imam of al-Dhahir. And likewise, Shaykh Ibn Arabi, mashallah, in Tasawwuf, he is Imam Ahli Tasawwuf, Imam of the people of Tasawwuf. He has his own theory, Wahdatul Wujud. And Ibn Rushd in philosophy, the one of the biggest name who argues Al-Imam Al-Ghazali and brings his own theory. So this region has some special characteristics. The same time, when these scholars were in different period of time, the same time if you read the eastern part of the world, you see many scholars, mashallah, but the ijtihad is going to down. So ijtihad, no more ijtihad. Scholars are reading the previous scholars and writing commentary on their books, compiling some footnotes on their books in this. So ijtihad is going down in the eastern world, but the ijtihad is opening the new door in the western part of the world. And these scholars are just a few examples. So Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree, born and raised in this area, in this region, and that's why, mashallah, we see there could be many reasons for that, and it needs a lot of study to analyze why this region is different than the eastern part of the world. But for our purpose, the time when Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree was growing up and he became an Imam, that was as I mentioned, the time for Banu Umayyah. The rulers of Banu Umayyah, they were ruling this part of the world. So politically, this was under the Islamic system of the Sharia, you can say. But it was not established era. Politically, just few years in the beginning, sometimes we were established. And in Baghdad, of course, in eastern part, there was some stability, but here in this part of the world, there was chaos. So politically, it was not very well stable area or the region. Imam Ibn Hazm and his father, they served as a wazir, as a minister of the government. So they were given some kinds of access to something which other people are not given this access. So mashallah, he learned, he went to the scholars and sit with others, and mashallah, they learned a lot. But Imam Ibn Hazm, he was witness with many things. So he says how when he saw the chaos is going on, and then how the fuqaha, they are disputing or arguing with each other, refuting others' policy or the views. So he was so upset. He says, he expresses his idea. He says, Wallahi law alimu anna fi ibadati sulbani ghashiyata umurihim labadaru ilayha wa rubbama a'tu al-mudan wal-qila' lin-nasara. He says, even the scholars, they were affected by that. And the scholars were scholars of dunya, no more scholars of deen. And he is attacking or mentioning specifically the fuqaha, the jurists. He says the fuqaha, they just sold their deen. So if they know in the ibadatul sulban, the Christians, if they have their own benefits to favor the Christianity, they could just go and issue the fatwa in favor of Christianity. They are just like that. فَأَخْلَوْهَا مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ and مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ, they would not mind to leave the Islam and the religion of Islam, and many more things he says. And then he says, لَا يَغُرَّنُّكُمْ الْفُسَّاقِ الْمُنْتَسِبُونَ إِلَى الْفِقْهِ اللَّابِسُونَ جِلْدَ الضَّعْنِ. So he is criticizing the fuqaha, the jurists of the time, those who sold their deen against of the dunya. So they are not, of course, the real faqih. Even Imam Ghazali talks about them. So he is criticizing because of the time period when he was living, and he is noticing and realizing how people are acting and how scholars are selling their deen and religion. They do not care about their deen and religion. But mashallah, he is growing up and he is learning the deen and the fiqh. There is one story and that is mentioned in his biography. That is fake story, by the way, how he came to learn the fiqh. So a story is there, how he came to learn the fiqh. So the story says, one day, Imam Ibn Hazm, he was around 23 years old. He wanted to attend a janaza, or the funeral prayer. So for that, he came to the masjid. When he came to the masjid, he saw there was some people were there. So once he entered the masjid, the people told him, stand up, perform 2 rakats of Tahiyatul Masjid. He says, fine. He stood up, he performed 2 rakats of the Tahiyatul Masjid. Then he attended the janaza prayer. Then he came back again to the masjid. After the burial, he came back to the masjid. When he came to the masjid, it was after Asr. The time was after Asr. And once he entered, he started performing Tahiyatul Masjid, because he learned that when you enter to the masjid, you have to perform the Tahiyatul Masjid 2 rakats of nafl. So he stood up to perform 2 rakats of nafl. There were the people, he says, who are you? You don't know anything about religion? Just sit down. You cannot read. You cannot perform the Tahiyatul Masjid at this time. You don't know this is the time after Asr. So he was so upset. I was here when I entered earlier. Some people told me to perform. Now I came again. I'm trying to perform. They say you cannot perform. So he went to his teacher and asked him, can you tell me where is some scholars he mentioned his house? Abu Abdullah bin Dahun, who was a faqih, says, where is his house? I wanted to go and learn the fiqh. Then he was told, so and so place is his house. He went there, and then he started reading Mu'atta Imam Malik. Then he said to him to read Mu'atta Imam Malik. Then he devoted 3 years of time. He learned Mu'atta and other books of ahadith and many more things. And he became experts in the hadith, in the fiqh, in all these things. But the scholars, they say, this story is mentioned in his biography. This is not a true story. This is fake story, because he is at this time, he is 23 years old. That does not mean he started learning in 23 years old. No, that is not the case. He was already learning and reading and knows what is fiqh, what is not fiqh, what is hadith, all these things. And even this masala, Tahiyatul Masjid, performing the tahiyya, and when you enter the masjid, this is so basic. So he knows all these things. So this is just one of the story. And then, mashallah, for the knowledge, he traveled western world, throughout the Spain, Qurtuba, eastern Qurtuba, western Qurtuba, and mashallah, he became then the scholar of the time. So when he became a scholar of the time, the scholars after him, they praised him, many scholars. And I was going through who are the scholars who praised him. So I found the big names, and among these names, Imam Dhahabi, who is talking about him. So if Dhahabi is authority in hadith, in tarikh, in history, in seerah, specifically in hadith, ilmul rijal, and in the critics of the rijal. So he is authority. So Imam Dhahabi is praising him and using the good words, good sentences, and describing the knowledge of Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree. And Ibn Makula, who also wrote a book in Ilmul Rijal, so he is also praising him. So these are two big names in Muslim tradition, and they are praising Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree. And mashallah, then after that, when he became the scholar, so he is compiling the book. The scholars, they counted his book, how many books he wrote. So one of the opinion, or Imam Zahabi at least, Imam Zahabi says he compiled 76 books. And these 76 books means not 76 volumes. It's thousands, it could be in hundreds. But the pages, it could be more than 50,000 pages. This is just one of the book what we are reading today, al-Muhallā. This is one of the book. And this is, by the way, with Sharhul Mujallā. So that's why it's in 22 volumes, but the original Muhallā is in 12 volumes. This is just one book. And how about if you say 76 books of Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree? So these books are in volumes. And some muhaqqiqun, the scholars, they say he wrote 136 books. So Zahabi, according to Zahabi, 76 books, and according to other scholars, that's 136 books. Whatever the case is, we know that he compiled many books and thousands of pages, and these books are in volumes. And some known book is Al-Ihkam fi Usul al-Ahkam, very well known. So there he talks about the principles of Islamic Sharia, Islamic rules and regulations. So this book we understand in the light of Al-Ihkam. Al-Muhallā we read in the light of Al-Ihkam. So if you wanted to understand the rules and the principles of Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree, based on that he is saying or any fiqh here or describing any rules, so we have to consult Al-Ihkam because the details is there. In Tawqul Hamaya, that Tawqul Hamama, that is in terms of love and ishq is compiling that. I will talk about that a little. And then this is al-Muhallā bil Athār. And then also he wrote Mulakhas Ibtālul Qiyās wal Ra'y wal Ihsān wal Taqlīd wal Ta'līl. So these are some of his books, but there are many as I mentioned. The scholars, because of his approach, criticized him. And their critics, of course, later on is explained by the later scholars as well, whoever is following him, or not only just following. If you are a scholar, really scholars, sincere scholars, you just read the book and you analyze yourself. So is it true or not? So the scholars later on, they analyze the critics and they explain that what is the meaning of the Ibn Hazm's statements. For example, some scholars criticizes him because he wrote this book Tawqul Hamama, that is in love. So they say, look, this person is person of love and ishq, and he is just talking about something which is not relevant. But whoever is criticizing him, he or she or they did not understand when Ibn Hazm is talking about love, he is not talking about the love of dunya. He is talking about the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can find many statements that he is bringing you through the love of dunya to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ishq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you did not read the entire book and you just started criticizing that he is a person of dunya and talking about love and all these things. Another famous critics, that when he is talking about ilmul rijal is the chain of transmission in the hadith. So you all are familiar, I believe, that the ahadith, they have the chain of transmission. So each narrators like Abu Huraira, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhum, and through them the chain comes down to Imam Bukhari and other scholars of hadith. So when we analyze the chain of the transmission, we go to each scholar's or each narrator's life, and then we justify if they are authentic, not authentic, reliable, not reliable. We have to take their narration or not. So one of the well-known Imam and scholar and muhaddis is Imam Tirmidhi. We all know that. He is a student of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. So Imam Tirmidhi is well known. What happened, Imam Ibn Hajar, he mentioned at some point that Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree, when he's talking about the rijal or the scholars of hadith or the narrators of hadith, he came to describe Imam Tirmidhi. He says, Tirmidhi is majhul. He is unknown. We don't know who Tirmidhi is. So the scholar said, who are you? What type of a scholar are you? You do not know who Imam Tirmidhi is. You say Tirmidhi is majhul, unknown. So the scholars, they criticize that. That means you do not have the ground or the authority in ilmul hadith or ilmul rijal. But later on, scholars, they explain this idea. And I read in detail. I myself did not know earlier when I was getting ready for that, so I read the explanation. At one point, he is basically praising Imam Tirmizi in some different place. So he's praising, he gives the entire chain of narration for one hadith, and then he is praising Imam Tirmizi. He's saying the huffaz of hadith are these and this, Imam Muslim and Bukhari, and among them is Tirmizi. So there is some flaw when it's cited with his reference that Tirmizi is majhul, and then in another reference we see he is praising Imam Tirmizi. So that means there is some flaw. We need to understand that based on the first statement or one citation, we could not criticize him. So these are some critiques on him. When we talk about his aqidah, of course his aqidah, he was with Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal in terms of creation of Quran. As Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal does not accept Quran is the creation or creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it is not makhluk. Imam Ibn Hanbal has the different opinion in that. So Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree is with Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal in that approach. Likewise, in the essence and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is very close to Mu'tazili opinion. And what is that? Like in some of the sifat, like Hayy, Qadir, and Alim, Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree does not make any difference between the that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these some attributes. Hayy means living, Qadir, the powerful, Alim, the one who knows. So they have the different meaning. But for Imam Ibn Hazm, there is no difference between essence of Allah and between attributes of these attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can say whatever the that or the essence, the same is attributes. This is Mu'tazili kind of approach. That's his approach. But in some other attributes what are mentioned in the Quran, he looks like he is using Ash'ari and Maturidi approach. And what is that? The Quran, in the Quran it's mentioned the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, fingers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and istiwa, the sitting on the throne. These are the literal meaning we know. So Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari and Imam Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, they have the approach of ta'wil. They explain, they do not take the literal meaning. Somehow Imam Ibn Hazm Ath-Dhahiree, he also uses the approach of ta'wil, the explanation. So in these issues, you can say the issues are mentioned or the sifat are mentioned in Quran and ahadith of the Prophet alayhi salam. He is using approach of Ash'ari and Maturidiyah, and in some of the sifat he is using the approach of Mu'tazila. So he is in some approach, he is in some issues he is different, in some issues he is different. In terms of fiqh, mashallah, as I mentioned with reference of Muwatta, so a scholar says in early stage he was Maliki, then he became Shafi'i, and then later on he became Imam of al-Dhahir. He became himself a mujtahid and a scholar and Imam of the time. So therefore he is not following any these scholars, any four madahib, not Hanbali, Shafi'i, Maliki or Hanafi. He himself established. The school was already established, but he joined that school of Dhahiri, and then he is advancing this school. And so mashallah, he is compiling many books. So one of the book is al-Muhallā. Just very quickly, few of his principles or usul that is very important for us to understand this book. He uses the same idea as Imam Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, Ahmad ibn Hanbal. They use in terms of abstracting the rulings. So that is what? The Quran, first of all. So he, of course, will use the Quran. The first source of the Sharia is Quran, like others. The second is Hadith. He values this Hadith, but he goes in detail. He says Sahih Ahadith. The third is consensus of the scholars, the ijma. He values ijma. The fourth one, which is qiyas, analogical reasoning, and later on the istihsan and maslaha and others, basically the qiyas, analogical reasoning, he doesn't accept that. He goes against this principle, the fourth one, which is agreed by the four scholars or four madahib, four school of madahib, Imam Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, Hanbal, Hanbal, and others, they all accept all these four principles: Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, Qiyas. But Imam Ibn Hazm Zahiri, he doesn't accept Qiyas as these scholars are accepting. So this is one of the biggest principle where he is differing with these scholars. So that's why you will find many places in Muhalla, almost in all chapters, you will find that he is, wherever the qiyas comes, he will go against that, and he will be refuting this idea of qiyas or analogical reasoning. And that point will be interesting point for us when we will be reading the book, because we will see his logic, his philosophy. So he is a logician person. His high level of, he based on rationality and intellectual reasoning. He doesn't accept the qiyas, but he is the mantiqi person. He wrote a book in mantiqs. So he is a logician, but he doesn't accept the qiyas. This is one of the important things that we have to keep in our mind. Now, let's start that. Keeping that in mind, we will read just a beginning part of the book, inshallah. The book starts, this is the book as I showed you. This is al-Muhallā, Sharh al-Mujallā. So this book starts with the Hamd and Salat, as normally the scholars, they start their books. So he did the same. And then he says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin, khatamin nabiyyin, wal mursaleen, wa sallama taslima. Wa nas'alullaha ta'ala an yushibana al-ismata min kulli khat'in wa zalal, wa yuwaffiqana lis-sawabi fi kulli qawlin wa amal. Ameen. That is his hamd, or the beginning part, or the preamble, where he is describing, he is talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he is sending the peace and blessing to the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And then after that, he accepts that Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam is the last prophet and final messenger, and he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be protected and could not do any kind of mistakes. And then he says, Ameen. And then he says, Amma ba'd. وفقنا الله سبحانه وتعالى وإياكم لطاعته فإنكم رغبتم أن نعمل للمسائل المختصرة التي جمعناها في كتابنا الموسوم بالمجلى شرحا مختصرا. So what happens? It looks like someone asked him. He wrote first of all al-Mujalla. He wrote a book, al-Mujalla. So someone asked him, the book you wrote, al-Mujalla, that looks like it's very tough and hard for us to understand. So is it possible if you could explain that? So he accepted the request of some students or some friend, and then he started writing that. And then says, I started doing that, but not like that. So the one who is asking, he wanted to make it easy, and then he says, ليكون مأخذه سهلا على الطالب والمبتدئ وَدَرْجًا لَهُ إِلَى التَّبَحُّرِ فِي الْحِجَاجِ وَمَعْرِفَةِ الْإِخْتِلَافِ. So what will he do when he would explain? He would quote the dalail, the evidence that could take you to ma'rifatul haq, the truth, the reality. And that has to based on ahkamul Quran. That's the number one. And then وَالْوُقُوفُ عَلَى جَمْهِرَةِ السُّنَنِ الثَّابِتَةِ عَنْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Sound hadith. First of all, that has to based on Quran, and then the sound hadith. And then وَتَمْيِيزِهَا مِمَّا لَمْ يَصِحْ. Then when he is going to explain, as he is saying that, he has to make a distinction between true and false, or right and wrong, or weak hadith, or the sahih hadith, or the fake hadith. He has to make a distinction. وَالْوُقُوفِ عَلَى الثِّقَاتِ, and then reliable narrations and narrators. وَالتَّنْبِيهِ عَلَى فَسَادِ الْقِيَاسِ, and then he has to highlight the qiyas is falsify something. It's a false. It doesn't make any sense. وَتَنَاقُضِهِ وَتَنَاقُضِ الْقَائِلِينَ بِهِ. So if you are making a qiyas or you are basing on analogical reasoning, so there is a contradiction. So he is going to highlight that contradiction in a qiyas, in analogical reasoning. So someone asked that, then he says, فَاسْتَخَرْتُ اللَّهَ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. He did the istikhara, and finally he asked help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he started writing this book. And then he says, وَلْيَعْلَمْ مَنْ قَرَأَ كِتَابَنَا هَذَا أَنَّنَا لَمْ نَحْتَجَّ إِلَّا بِخَبَرٍ صَحِيحٍ. So whoever is going to read my book, he should understand that I will only rely on Sahih Hadith. وَلَا خَالَفْنَا إِلَّا خَبْرًا ضَعِيفًا فَبَيَّنَّا ضَعْفَهُ. If I went against some issues, so there could be a weak hadith, which I already explained about that. Or if I left some things, that could be abrogated, mansukhan. فَأَوْضَحْنَا نَسْخَهُ. So I explain this is abrogated, that's why I am not following that. وَمَا تَوْفِيقُنَا إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. This is the preamble, the muqaddimah, why he wrote this book, when he wrote this book, all these things. Now the first mas'ala, he says, أَوَّلُ مَا يَلْزَمُ كُلَّ أَحَدٍ وَلَا يَصِحُ الْإِسْلَامُ إِلَّا بِهِ. The first thing, the first chapter of the book, or the first mas'ala, the first chapter talks about aqidah, not fiqh. Aqidah, Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in Tawheed, he starts with that, the first and foremost thing that we have to believe, or the Islam cannot be correct for anyone, that he has to do what? أن يعلم المرء بقلبه علم يقين وإخلاص لا يكون لشيء من الشك فيه أثر وينطق بلسانه ولا بد بأن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله. The first thing person has to do, they have to proclaim La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. They have to have in their heart, the belief in the heart, and they have to pronounce. So two important things. Al-mar'u biqalbihi ilma yaqeen. In the heart you have to have a firm belief and yaqeen and the certainty, and then you are pronouncing. You should not have any kinds of doubt, any type of doubt. So these are 3 points now he is explaining. The first, al-yaqeen, the certainty. Number 2 is the doubt. Number 3, saying with lisan, with tongue, proclaiming La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. That is the main point. Now he goes in Sharah and talks about that. I will not read the entire Sharah, but I will just summarize for you what he is saying. So first of all, to prove that, he is quoting the hadith of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam with the reference of Abu Huraira, and this hadith is in Sahih Muslim and other books of hadith, and that is very famous, well-known hadith that Rasul alayhi salam says in that hadith, أُقَاتِلُ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَشْهَدُوا أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَيُؤْمِنُوا بِي وَبِمَا جِئْتُ بِهِ فَإِذَا فَعَلُوا ذَلِكَ عَصَمُوا مِنِّي دِمَاءَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ إِلَّا بِحَقِّهَا وَحِسَابُهُمْ عَلَى اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. It says, just announce to the people, or the people have to accept La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. If they would not accept, then I will keep fighting against them. This hadith, of course, has a certain context, but Imam Ibn Hazm is not citing the context here. In general, his point is just La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that is emphasized in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alaihi wasallam. Therefore, people have to believe or accept La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So what does he do? First, he is citing the hadith to support his idea, and then he cites. So he is not well organized in that manner. So now he is citing the ayat of the Quran, while the real organization should be first he cite the Quran, and then the hadith, and then something else. But now in second level he is citing the ayat of the Quran, and they all are talking about to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one of the ayah, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبِلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. So that there is no religion except the Islam or deen of Islam. And then he says this is the same approach of, or same statement of Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. So he gave us Quran, he gave us hadith, he gave the opinion of Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. And then he talks and he says, وَأَمَّا وُجُوبُ أَقْدِ ذَلِكَ فِي الْقَلْبِ. You have to believe in your heart. Another ayah he quotes, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. And so these things, he is talking these things, and then he is supporting his idea with the ayat of the Quran and ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in terms of proclaiming La ilaha illallah, you have to say, you can not only believe in your heart, you have to also say that. For that he says, وَأَمَّا وُجُوبُ النَّطْقِ بِذَلِكَ بِاللِّسَانِ فَإِنَّ الشَّهَادَةَ بِذَلِكَ لَا تَكُونُ إِلَّا بِاللِّسَانِ ضَرُورَةً. He did not quote any hadith, he did not quote any Quran, any statements. Logically, he says, no. In order to, like, just for us, for our purpose to understand, to ijra'ul ahkam, as other scholars say, how do I know that you are Muslim? So for that, you have to proclaim, you have to state La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So to abstract the ruling, or to know within the community that you are Muslim, you have to say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So he say, you have to say daruratan. It's obvious that you have to say that. And then the next point he says, and this will be the last one, with that I will conclude. He says, then after that you have to understand, أن الله سبحانه وتعالى إله كل شيء دونه وخالق كل شيء دونه. He says, now you said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, and then you have to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is God of each and everything. Other than him, what is other than him? So he is God of that. He is Allah of that. And he subhanahu wa ta'ala is created each and everything. So he is Allah of everything, and he is Khaliq of each and everything. Now to explain these two words, Ilahu kulli shay, Khaliqu kulli shay. He, mashallah, he gives you the logical explanation, and he becomes a completely rational person. He uses all this rationality and the mantiq and the logic. So he says, the dalil, the evidence for that is, Annal alam, what is universe? Because he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Anna Allah ta'ala ilahu kulli shay. There is a that essence of Allah, there is other thing. So what is other thing? Al-alam. Al-alam, I translate it as universe. What is universe? So in Arabic, it's defined as ma siwa Allah. What is not Allah, that is alam, that is universe. So first he comes here, burhanu dhalika, dalil of that is anna al-alama bi kulli ma fihi dhu zaman. The alam, the universe, which is other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this universe is dhu zaman. It is combined of the time. It has the time. Universe is formed with the time or by the time. Lam yanfakka anhu qattu. Time and the alam, the zaman and the universe, or the time and the universe, they both cannot be separated. So if it looks like that you will be reading what? Chemistry maybe, or what's that? The chemistry or what?
Physics or
Physics. Physics. You're reading the physics. So he goes in that detail. So the alam, the world, the universe, and the time, you cannot separate between these two things. And you cannot even imagine the separation of these two entities. وَلَا يُمْكِنُ أَنْ يَخْلُوَ الْعَالَمْ عَنِ الزَّمَانِ. They both are together. Now he does. So that is the meaning of alam, or the universe. So universe contains the zaman, or the time. And then now zaman, or the time. What is time? So he says the time is muddatu baqa'il jismi mutaharrikan aw sakinan. The body or the matters. The matters, as it stays, the time limit, it stays whether it doesn't move, it moves or not move. When it is just fixed or it is moving. So that could be understood as a zaman or as a time. And then the mudda is a mudda to baqa. There is a length, a period of time. The period or the mudda, or there could be the tiny period of time. So between the haraka or the sakin or motion or the motionless. So muddatu wujudil arad fil jism. So what happened? This is a jism. This is a body or the matter. So in that, this body, it needs something. So in Arabic language, that is called, if it's a need, something to hold, to put somewhere, that is called ard. So we have a concept of ard and we have a jawhar. Jawhar is essence and ard is the something that requires in its essence something. So the example could be sun and its light. Sun is jawhar in one way, and the light of sun is ard, because without sun there cannot be light of sun. Or the moon and its lights. So moon is jawhar and the light is ard. The mantiq people, logicians, they talk a lot about that, jawhar and ard. They both are accident. They both are accident. Accident meaning they both have to have the end. So now Shaykh Zahiri, Imam Ibn Hazm, he is going in that direction. He says, muddatu wujudil arad fil jism. So any body, any physical body or any elements that has some kinds of arad. So it is combined with some particles. And these particles are arad, meaning they are accident. They are in need of something. Why is that? It is zamanu muddatun kama dhakarna. Fahiya adadun ma'dud. Now he comes back to the zaman, to time. So time requires some particles or the mudda, the some length, and it has to have the numbers. It has to have combines with the adad ma'dud. You have to count it. And this counting, yazidu bimururihi wa dawamihi. When you are counting it, it could increase and or it could continue. وَالزِّيَادَةُ لَا تَكُونُ الْبَتَّةَ إِلَّا فِي ذِي مَبْدَإٍ وَنِهَايَةٍ. When it's increasing, now it has to have a beginning point and the ending point. So when you have the beginning point and then the ending point, then some problem will occur there when he comes to that problem. وَالْعَدَدُ أَيْضًا ذُو مَبْدَأٍ. Numbers are also have the beginning point and the ending point. So time has the beginning point and ending point, and the numbers have the beginning point and ending point. I don't know if you are familiar with this idea. It's called theory of indivisible. That's called in Arabic juz'ul ladhi la yatajazza. So before, the philosophers, they were saying that there is the particle or the atom. You can divide and divide. There could be a place, you will reach to the point that it's undividable. You cannot divide it. That's old ancient philosophy. But Muslim philosophers, they rejected that. And the recent days, the new discovery camps or the new research camps, I think the contemporary scientists also, they rejected this idea. I don't know much about that, but I just read somewhere. So he's talking about that, exactly that idea. وَالزَّمَانُ مُرَكَّبٌ بِلَا شَكٍّ مِنْ أَجْزَائِهِ وَكُلُّ جُزْءٍ مِنْ أَجْزَائِهِ الزَّمَانُ فَهُوَ بِيَقِينٍ ذُو نِهَايَةٍ مِنْ أَوَّلِهِ وَمُنْتَهَاهُ. Time, you have time, which has the beginning, which has the end. And likewise, you have the number, which has the starting point and then the ending point. What happened? وَالْكُلُّ لَيْسَ هُوَ شَيْئًا غَيْرَ أَجْزَائِهِ. They are combined with particles and particles and particles and particles. So they all have the beginning and ending. فَلَمَّا كَانَ الزَّمَانُ لَا بُدَّ لَهُ مِن مَبْدَإٍ ضَرُورَةً وَكَانَ الْعَالَمُ كُلُّهُ لَا يَنْفَكُّ مِنْ زَمَانٍ. Now the universe is combined with time and the numbers. And time and numbers, they have the beginning and the numbers and the ending. Therefore, the universe has the beginning and ending. And now, if it has something has the beginning and ending, so that is the attributes of accident, ard. So if it is accident or the hadith, it has to have the end. There has to be some muhdith, someone who can bring it from non-existence. And then he says that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what does he do? He says, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, you have to believe in that. Then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he describes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala other than alam. Allah is ma siwa al-alam is Allah, other than the universe. Allah and universe is not same thing. Allah is different, and anything Allah other than Allah, that is alam or the universe. Universe is combined with different forces, and all these forces have the beginning and the ending. So when something has the beginning or the ending, that is the sign of huduth or accident. So it requires something to bring that in existence, and that's something you can say that is that force, or that some force is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how he proves existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the alam is other than Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ilah of each and everything. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I conclude with that, inshallah.